Hello, I'm Joseph Crudup, and welcome to my story. Today I'm writing the book of the part two called Mahalia Jackson, The Voice of Gospel and Civil Rights. Let's begin and we'll continue. Starting the part two in this video. 3. A New Start. Hearing Aunt Duke's cries, Mahalia came running in to see what was wrong. Near her aunt lay a telling with terrible news. Aunt Duke's son, Mahalia's cousin Fred, was dead. Mahalia never found out how Fred had died. Some people said that he had been killed in after hours ballroom fights. His body was sent back to New Orleans with Fred's musician friends honoring him with a brass band for the funeral. Mahalia has been too long to understand her mother's death, but now, at the age of 14, she felt great sadness at Fred's funeral. She took his death as a sign that it was time for her to leave New Orleans. Fred had always encouraged her to get out and do something with her singing talent, adding that Mahalia's unhappiness with her arguments with Aunt Duke, who accepted Mahalia's to follow her strict rules. One particular quarrel with Aunt Duke made Mahalia even more determined to find a new life elsewhere. It began after Mahalia was late getting home one evening. She and her cousin Sally had stopped at a friend's house when there was a party. Mahalia saw Sally talking to a long man near to the punch bowl. Later, Mahalia noted that Celia was trying to fight off the long man's advice. Mahalia grabbing the closest thing at hand, an ice pick, and stabbed the long man with it. It barely penetrated his skin. It was enough to get his attention and get him away from Sally. Mahalia's friends agreed with her to hurry home and let them take care of the long man. They knew that Mahalia was not allowed to stay out past 9 o'clock, and they did not want her to get into trouble. But she had already stayed out too long, and Aunt Duke was angry when she found out what had happened. She told Mahalia to get out of the house and not come back. Mahalia spent the night with friends. It was not the first time Aunt Duke had ordered Mahalia to leave. Other times, Mahalia stayed away for the night or two and then went back home after Aunt Duke had calmed down. But this time, Mahalia did not return. She moved into a tiny house that had only one room and a kitchen. It was just a couple of blocks away from Aunt Duke's friends and family helped out by giving her furniture they no longer needed, and Mahalia looked for money work so that she could pay their rent. $6 a month. At 15, Mahalia was on her own. Life changed for Mahalia again little when her aunt Hannah came down from Chicago for Thanksgiving. Aunt Hannah invited Mahalia back to Chicago. Aunt Duke did not want Mahalia to go. She warned Mahalia that Chicago was home to dangerous gangsters like Al Capone and Bugs and Malone. Mahalia's father already got involved in her life, but on this matter, he said of Aunt Duke. He had been to Chicago once. He returned home frightened by the size of the city and the presence of gangsters. That warnings worried Mahalia, but she decided to go anyway. She used some of her savings to buy a train ticket to Chicago. In 1927, all African Americans had to ride in a certain train car, the first car behind the engine. They were not allowed to eat in the dining car, says Aunt Hannah, packing a large basket of food to take along. Their only chance to get anything hot was a station was the stations along the way, where the trains supported stopping it. With the train stopping, they can lean out the window and buy coffee from peddlers or the platform. The trip took 2 nights and a day, but Mahela and her aunt had nowhere to lie down. While white passengers registered comfortably in Parliament barracks, Mahela and Aunt Hannah had to sit up straight, upright in their seats. They huddled together under a wool blanket that Aunt Hannah had brought along for the unheated synagogue car. It was cold and snowy when they arrived in Chicago. Mahela did not have any clothing on for some temperatures, and she set a cold water to Aunt Hannah's place. She was surprised when her aunt held holding her text, and the white driver did not protest. In New Orleans, they would never have been allowed to ride in a white man's cab. Aunt Hannah lived in a three-story building on Chicago's south side. She shared the apartment with her sister, Alice. Mahela moved in with her two aunts and her long cousins, Nell and Rilla, and little Alice. What did Mahela think about this new city? At first, I was afraid of Chicago. She later recalled, I couldn't get used to the noise and the cold and those big buildings that made me feel like I was in a prison. But she also saw something she liked. African Americans in Chicago were proposing the city had a large African American community, second in size only to New York City's Harlem. More than 300,000 African Americans live in the city's south side neighborhood in an area covering almost 40 blocks. There was work in Chicago. Many from the South Side found jobs in Chicago's meatpacking industry or in the steel mills in nearby Gary, Indiana. Mahalia was amazed to see African Americans, policemen, firemen, and professionals. It was so different from her neighborhood in New Orleans, where all the policemen were white and she had never seen an African American law. In Chicago, African American doctors worked at the Penn Hospital, where Mahela hoped to train as a nurse. Blacks owned their own business, and they even had their own weekly newspaper. The Chicago Defender. It gave me inspiration to see these things. Jackson said, I thought about someday having a business of my own. Mahela had to put her nurse's plans on hold when Aunt Hannah became sick with her heart trouble. Mahela filled in her aunt's job as a cook for a white family. Aunt Alice was also a cook. 6 days a week, Mahela and Aunt Alice boarded the Inverna train known as the EI. That system of railroad tracks built above the city streets took them to their jobs across town on the north side. When Aunt Hannah was well enough to go back to work, and the family asked Mahela to continue working for them doing laundry. Soon after Jill arrived in Chicago, Mahela heard that Basis Smith would be appearing at the interview. Mahela went early and went in line to be sure she got a ticket. It was worth the wait. She filled the whole place with her voice. Jackson recalled Mahela sat in her seat long after anyone else had left the concert. Just thinking about Smith's performances, she did not leave until the ushers told her that they were ready to lock up for the night. At Mahala's first visit to Chicago shorts, she discovered that service there was different. In New Orleans, she was used to singing with a congratulator. Mahalia did not know that in the Chicago shorts, the crowd sing the hymns and the congratulator and the congratulations listen. When the chorus began to sing, Mahalia felt booed to join in. As people turned to stare, Mahalia realized that hers was the only voice coming from the back of the church. Still, she did not stop. I keep on singing, and people look at me, and I just held my head up and my eyes closed. And finally, somebody else will pick it up, and finally another person will pick it up until the whole church joined in. She recalled. Mahalia realized the unwinding of the situation. She knew that many of the people in the church had to come to Chicago from the South, like like her. They were used to singing with the congratulator, but they had abandoned that practice up north, as if it was too undignified. Mahalia soon joined the greatest Sermon Baptist Church, where she held to sing with the crowd. There were 50 people in the crowd, and at Mahala's first practice she sang louder than all of them together, but the choir director stopped them mid-song. Mahalia was sure that she was going to be asked to leave. Instead, he asked her to try a solo. Mahalia picked Hand Me Down My Silver Trumpet. Gabriel, a song a song she had known since she was a child. But then she was so nervous that she prayed and that she would be able to make it all the way through the end. She did not need to worry. The director made her as solid with with the crowd. Mahala also became friends with the minister's three sons, Prince, Robert, and Wimble Johnson, and a woman named Louis Lemon. By 1929, the Johnson brothers team up with Louis Lemon and Mahalia to form a group called the Johnson's Gospel Singers. At first, they sang only in their own church, but they soon began getting invitations from other churches in the area. Their style including hand clapping and songs with a bouncing beat. Many people enjoyed their music, but there were some who said they did not belong in church. Get that twisted and that jazz out of his church. One pastor hollered, Mahalia did not leave quietly. This was the way we sing down south. She called over her shoulder as she handled him out the door. In 1929, the stock market crashed. This marks the beginning of the Great Depression, an economic crisis that affected the whole country. People lost their jobs when business shut down and Factories lay off employees. People lost their savings when banks were forced to close. Jackson saw the efforts of the Great Depression in her neighborhood. Unemployment was especially high among African Americans. On the south side of Chicago, they had been the last to be held at factories as they measured north, and now they were the first to lose their jobs. All the new popularity they had enjoyed was gone. It was it was as if somebody had pulled a switch and everything had stopped running, Jackson recalled. With no jobs to go to, people warming in the streets and sat leisurely. Families moved in together, hoping that between them they will be able to come up with enough money to pay the rent. Those without money for rent lived in shacks. prices together from scraps of wood, tin, and temporary suitcases and barrels were set up to provide food for those who had well down in their luck. In an old twist of fate, the Depression actually helped Jackson sing his career. One way that people paid their bills during those hard times was with rent parties, which included super and music at a private home. In mention to the private raised money to help keep a roof over and homeowners' head. They also helped businesses making a living by giving them a place to perform. Churches were doing the same type of thing, only they called the parties sources. The Johnson Gospel Singers performed often at social and Chicago churches. For the evening performances, they even averaged about $1.50 each for a collaborator taking off from the admission charge of 5 or 10 cents. The Johnson Gospel Singers reportedly grew. They soon began receiving invitations to appear in churches and other parts of Illinois and in Indiana. Jackson also started getting opportunities as a soloist. In 1931, the owner of the local funeral home hired Jackson to sing at funerals, paying her $2 for each service. He also looked on performances for her in Chicago and the surrounding realm. To inviting her concerts, he printed flowers on his copy machine and used the funeral card to draw her to sing engagement. Jackson also sang for local politicians. In the summer of 1932, William L. Dawson was running for a seat on the city council. He asked Jackson to perform at his fundraising factories. Jackson had a special interest in helping him get elected. He was African American and understood the problems in his neighborhood. She kept busy that summer signing for large meetings and politician rallies. She sang her gospel song, but changed the words of the songs to fit the occasions. At politics rallies, Jackson sang about how well Dawson who saw his people. Dawson won that election. He led well to the service 14 times as a Democratic congressman and the U.S. House of Representatives. Jackson also teamed with Senator Thomas A. Dorsey, leaving the stage in George time. Dawson had traveling and performing with blues singers, blues singer Mary. Although he had a successful blues career, he was the son of a Baptist minister and had been raised to believe that the blues was the devil's music. In 1930, he gave up the blues and turned his attention to writing gospel music. In 1932, Dawson opened the first publishing house for sheet music of gospel songs written by African American composers. At first, not many people bought her sheet music. Then he got the gun deal losing demonstrations. These were performances were stood on street corners and sang the music. People heard the songs and they liked them. There was then was willing to pay a dime for a copy of the sheet music. Jackson became one of Dawson's demonstrations. Dawson had first heard Jackson when she was singing with the Jonathan Gospel Singers, and he was impressed. They were really walking them everywhere they went, Darcy recalled. He also liked the way Mahalia worked a crowd. She was a good mistress, and she loved everybody. He said, at least she acted like she loved everybody. She called everybody baby, honey, darling. On the other hand, Doris said that there were areas where Mahalia could improve. He said that she did not bury in the right place and that she sang song too fast. I tried to show Mahalia how to breathe and praise. She was, but she wouldn't listen. She said I was trying to make a stereotype singer out of her. Dorothy explained. She may have been right. Dorothy would not be on the only one to try to change Jackson's style. Now, Jackson had no musical training. In fact, she could not even read music, with new upon opportunities coming her way. She decided that maybe it was time for her to get some formal training in 1932. She signed up for a lesson with an African American tailor who had studio on Chicago's South Side. Lessons cost $4 an hour, which was a lot of money at that time. At her first lesson, the instructor told Jackson that she needed to sing slowly and to start hollering so that white people could understand her music. It was confusing to Jackson, who felt that he wasn't asking her to sing in a way that was not natural to her. She never went back for another lesson. Jackson continued doing laundry during the day. The income and the money from singing with the Jackson Gospel Singers, and as a socialist did not add up too much, but she knew that she was better off than many others who were out working during the Great Depression. One day, on her way from home, one day, on her way home from work, Jackson saw a group of people standing in a soup line. It did not seem right to her that they were waiting in line for soup when she had money in her pocket. She decided to take action. I just told a bunch of those guys to come on over to my house, and I cut string beans and ham hocks and cornbread and net buns and rice. I must have fed about 20 people. She would call. After that, she made it a habit. If she saw people standing in a good line and she had the money to get them some good home cooking food, she invited them home with her. Jackson was busy performing both as a socialist and a part of the Jackson Gospel Singers. But there was always the question of whether or not it was possible to make a living as a gospel and as living as a gospel singer. Jackson did not have the answer, but she knew that she wanted to continue singing. Other members of the Jackson Gospel Singers were not as committed. As they turned to other interests, Jackson began performing them more often as a soloist. 4. A fast and bread singer. By the mid 1930s, Jackson was touring all across the United States. She traveled by train and sang at churches in family with the National Baptist Convention, an organization of more than 4 million people. She went from one church to another, staying with the minister's family in each town. After the correct, they would count up the money. Then the mistress was starving for Jackson wood and board, and they would divide up the rest. Often the performers, such as Jackson, were invited to stay and eat supper with the church members after the correct. That was how they became known as fish and bread. Fish and bread singers. They sang for the Lord and also for their support. Jackson sang traditional gospel songs, but not in a traditional way. Her style was a combination of blues, the Baptist music she sung as a child, and the rhythms of the Pentecostal church near her childhood home in New Orleans. She sang with her whole body, stoning and swinging her hips. She believed that gospel music should be sung with joy. For those who thought that her handicapping and foot stomping did not belong in church, she had a way answer. Oh, clap your hands, all ye people, shout unto the Lord with the voice of a trumpet. She said, quoting from Psalms 47 in the Bible. Jackson's powerful voice was it says in those early travels. There were no mics in church in those days. Jackson recalled, I just sing out, and with the Lord's help, the people in the back walls held me. Jackson continued doing laundry in Chicago between singing and engagements. Then, after being gone on a long hour, she came back to find that she had been replaced. She got a job packing dates in a factory, but it did not take her long to discover that she was not suited to that work. After a week in the factory, I was ready to have them put me in a box. She joked. She didn't get a job as a maid in a hotel, earning $12 a week. Jackson was singing at a church social in 1935 when she met acid, like Hall. Jackson was 23 and Hall was 10 years older. He was well educated with a degree in a science master from Frick, for Frick's University in Tennessee. He had also studied at Tuskegee University in Alabama. Hawking was immediately drawn to her. Jackson found it hard to believe that an older, educated man could be interested in her. But Hawking was captivated. I love her I love her the minute I laid eyes on her across that room, he said. We talked that evening and then I called on her and Hannah and Alice. They dated for about in there. In 1936, they married in a small ceremony in Aunt Hannah's apartment. Sometime early, Jackson had taken a 10-year-old harness boy named John Sellers under her wing. He lived with Hawking and Jackson for a short time, and Hawking proved to be a good father. When Jackson discovered that the longest had a great singing voice, she began letting her perform at some of her concerts. She introduced him as little brother John Sellers. During the Depression, Hawking could not find work as a comics. Instead, he worked as a suspicious mail carrier for the Postal Service. His mother had run a cosmetics business in St. Louis before the Depression. She specialized in costumes and hair products designed for the African American women. Hawking knew the formulas she used, and he and Jackson began mixing up their own production to sell. From there on, Jackson took to produce on the road with her to sell. Hawking also sold them in Chicago to people along his mail route. In 1937, J. Miller Inc. Williams, a decor records contract Jackson about making a recording. At that time, Decca was the third largest record company in the United States, but Jackson will be his first gospel singer. A recording session was set for May 24th, 1937. The 78 RPM records at the time were able to hold only 3 or 3.5 minutes of music on each side. one song per side. Traditionally, record producers pick one song that they believe will be do well, and that became the hit side of the record. And Walker song was placed on the back on the flip side. It was also customary to record songs for more than one record during a recording session. Jackson recorded full songs during the whole first session, including God's Going to Separate when the What from the Tails. The song was about getting rid of the Ray's tails before the way it could be hazarded. The song enjoyed some success in the South, but did not get much playing time as well. Another song from the recording session, God Shall Wipe Away All My Tears, was a big hit in Jackson's old neighborhood in New Orleans. They made his sampling records for jukebox in ballrooms, discovering that Jackson had been raised in that era. So they installed the record on local jukeboxes. It was the first time that a gospel record had received that kind of attention. Jackson's family never went to ballrooms, but when they heard that she was on the jukebox, they made an exception. Even Aunt Duke went down to listen to her niece on the jukebox. Unfortunately, overall sales of Jackson's records were low. The Carol executive wanted her to sing blues, but Jackson said no. It was not that she did not like the blues. She said that it was a beautiful music, but it did not leave her feeling satisfied. It's like a man that did not leave. It's like a man that drinks. When we he and when he gets through being drunk, I mean, it's like a man that drinks. And when he gets through being drunk, he still got his troubles. As she explained. When she refuses to sing blues, they can't draw her from its list of artists. Other people also told Jackson that she should sing other types of music. One was Jackson's friend Louis Satchmore Armstrong, who found her old boyfriend as a jazz musician. He won Adonis with his trumpet playing and his dexterous, gravely voice. He tried to persuade Jackson to sing with his band, telling her that she could make some real great, but she said no. Jackson's husband, also wanted her to sing something other than gospel. He ordered her to train in classical music such as opera. He thought gospel singing was educated. Jackson explained. Disagreements by disagreements about Jackson's music was just one of the problems in their marriage. Hockenhard also did not like Jackson's being on the road so much. By the late 1930s, she was traveling with Thomas A. Dozier singing her songs in church and a baptismal conversion all across the country. Jackson was on. Jackson was unhappy with Hockenhall because he spent his time being a racehorse. I was brought up in the shorts, and I did not want that gambling money, she said. Gambling losers also put a strain on their friendships. The situation got even worse when Hockenhall was laid off from the post office. Jackson had also lost her job. She was fired from the hotel after neglect in train connections, causing her to miss work on Monday. They were down to their last $3 when Hockenhall heard about casting for the Federal Theater Project in Chicago. The Federal Theater Project was part of the government agency funded during the Depression to provide work for unemployed workers, stray hands, musicians, and others involved with the stage. Now the project was casting out for a swing production a gable and servants upward. The middle swing was a new type of jazz with smooth, less complaining rhythms. It was often played by large dance bands. The new production called the Hot Marketer was featuring an all-black cast. Jackson did not want to endorse him, but Hockey Hoss said they needed the money. She took her gospel songbook and headed for the theater. She was greeted at the door by a blonde woman who informed her that. For that. The songbook would not do. She needed sheet music. Jackson went to a nearby store and spent 50 cents for the engagement of sometimes I felt like a motherless child, a son that was always in her book of gospel music. When it was her turn in the traditional, Jackson gave music to the parents who began to play. It was not an engagement that Jackson knew. Since she did not read music, she did not know when to start singing it. The parents stopped it and started again. This time Jackson came in at the right time. Jackson sang from the heart, but she did not get any pleasure from knowing that she had done well. I was changing myself for the door, and it was just like her hot gaspers popping in at me to her the people in that auditorium applaud. She remembered. When she got home, Hockenheim met her at the door to tell her that the dealer had already called. Jackson got the part. Then she learned that her husband had also had some success that day. He had gotten a job selling insurance. That settled it. With Hockenhall working, they no longer needed the extra money. To Hockenhall's disappointment, Jackson called the dealer and told them that she would not take the part. In 1939, Jackson decided to pursue another dream, having her own business. She opened Mahalia's British Salon, which was an immediate success. She soon had 5 women working for her, and added benefit was that there was room for Jackson and Hockenhall to live at the back of the shop, so they did not have to pay rent for an apartment. Jackson continued to travel on weekends for singing engagements, arriving at home in time to open her British salon. On Mondays, in spite of her handwork, she and her husband struggling financially because of Hawkins Hall's gambling. Hawkins Hall sometimes won at the track race, but he was not good at managing money. One time after the big win at the track, he gave Jackson $2,000 and told her to hide it so that he could not be tempted to lose it. Jackson stole the money under the carpet in the bedroom, spending it out smoothly so that there were no noticeable lumps. Then she left for a tour. When Jackson came back, the money was gone. Hockey Hall had used it to buy a racehorse. A final blow to their marriage started as a happy occasion when Hockey Hall bought Jackson her first car, a new white Buick. Having a car made traveling easier for Jackson. She was no longer dependent on train schedules, often a Hockey Hall or a friend on a related travel with her to do the driving. One day, Jackson looked out the window of the beautiful salon to see men hooking up her car to a tall trunk. They were responsible because Hockenhall had not been making the car payments. Jackson Jackson paid the money on, and she was able to keep the car, but she was tired of paying Hockenhall's gambling debts. The couple separated in 1941, and got a divorce in 1943. By the end of 1941, the United States was fighting in World War II. The war caused shortages of products such as gasoline, which made traveling more difficult. Jackson gave her a touring with Dorothy and sat in a position as close director at the Chicago Shorts. She was also still busy with her British solo. In the early 1940s, the popularity of gospel music grew as people sought comfort in the fact of the tragedies of war. When the war ended in 1945, a new group of concerts promoters sprang up to take advantage of that growing interest. The promoters organizing concerts for gospel singers, then the promotions and performances such these guys showed the money taken in at the door. Sadly, some of the new promoters were not honest. They reported honest, lower than what was actually what was actually made in ticket sales. That meant that meant less money for the performances. Jackson found that she would not be a victim of the dishonest promotions. She liked to place someone she trusts at the door selling tickets. That way she could be certain about how much money was taken in. Sometimes she even sold the tickets herself. Some people thought it was strange to have the performers selling tickets for her own concert. One time before a concert at the Shots in Chicago, Jackson and two assistants sat in the box office selling tickets. A press agent half joking and told Jackson that he was going to have photographers who were taking a picture of the show starting stunning in the locker room. His intention was to be embarrassed at Jackson and not to lead the box office. But she was not budgeting. That that show son of those this hopeless promotion I got sense enough to protect my money, she said. There was also a promoter who left before the concert was over without paying the performances. As a result, Jackson refuses to sing until she had received full payment. She also interested in being paid in cash and was known to carry a large amount of money in her purse or tuck her into her clothing for safekeeping. Jackson had just finished performing at a gospel concert in Detroit, Michigan in 1946 when a man came up to introduce himself. He was Johnny Miles, a well-known black gospel promoter in New York City. That meeting strategically Jackson's career in a new direction. We'll be doing chapter 5 and 6 of this book. Till then, let's do it tomorrow. Till then, take care and have a nice day.